All right, guys, so we got some updates here on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, pretty soon after I posted my video yesterday on the shooting that happened at that Utah university, it was confirmed that Charlie did, in fact, die from his injuries, which honestly is not that surprising to anybody who was unfortunate enough to have watched the close-up video of the shooting itself. It really does seem like no human being could have possibly survived that kind of a wound. So we do have some updates that I want to get to in terms of the latest of what we know so far. In terms of what we still don't know as of the time that I'm recording this video, we still don't know, number one, who the shooter is, and we also don't know what the motive is. But further on in this video, I'm going to get to a statement that was put out by Donald Trump, as well as the reaction from the rest of MAGA world and conservatives who, again, even though we don't know who the shooter is or what the motive is, are essentially calling for retribution and revenge against the left. Now, here we go. To start us off on the basic facts of what we do know, according to this most recent press conference here from Philip Lewis, he says that the FBI is claiming they recovered a high-powered bolt-action rifle that was recovered from the area where the suspected Kirk shooter fled. Now, this is according to the New York Post here. I haven't seen 100% confirmation that this is the gun, but this is what the New York Post is claiming is the gun that was recovered. They say that it was basically found in a wooded area that was nearby the school, and I guess they're saying it was ditched by the shooter, sort of like laid around in some sort of a blanket. And what's interesting about this to me, if this is in fact the gun that was used, is that one of the main theories of how the shooter got the gun to the position on the roof that they would have shot Charlie from is that one of the theories is that the gun itself would have been collapsible. Now, I'm not a major gun expert by any stretch of the imagination. To me, just at surface level, this doesn't look like a collapsible gun, but maybe somebody who knows more about it can comment down below if you think that this is something that could be collapsed and put into a backpack and then, undone on the roof and put together and then do the shot, put it back in the backpack, and walk off of campus with it. I mean, I guess that's the idea of what people are suspecting happened. So this is reportedly the gun that was found. Now, a couple more details from this press conference. They say that the shooter appears to be of college age and, quote, blended in with students as he left. They say they have good video footage of this individual. More on that here in a second. They say authorities still don't know the shooter's motive, and they have footwear impressions and a palm print that they're trying to work off. Now, here is the, I guess, good video footage that they've released so far of this person of interest, is what they're calling them, that the FBI and the Utah Department of Public Safety are seeking information on. So here are the two different images that I've seen floating around. It looks like he's got, jeans on, a black t-shirt with an American flag on it, black shaded out glasses, and maybe a gray hat. Another angle here makes it pretty clear, I think, that he's wearing some sort of a backpack. You can see the discrepancy on the positioning of his shoulders there, as well as a potential strap in the back, and also the discoloration between his shirt and the backpack strap there. So looks like he was wearing a backpack if this was indeed the shooter, and people were able to trace down what looks to be the shirt that he was wearing. It says "Land of the Free, Home of the Brave." It has an American flag on it and a bald eagle, obviously. So this is reportedly what the shooter looks like, or at least the person of interest that they're looking for. Now, we also have the FBI offering up to $100,000 for information leading to the identification and the arrest of the person or people responsible for the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. Now, this is interesting, I think, purely just for the fact that it kind of shows you, given that this was released today at about 1 p.m., it looks like, that they really don't have much that they're working with here, right? You wouldn't offer a reward of $100,000 if you were dead set on tracking down the guy, right? If you had substantial information on where this guy potentially is. So they might be, at this point, I mean, even a full day later, sort of like flying blind in terms of tracking down the guy who was in this footage here and potentially getting more information on who exactly he is,
consistent in
whether or not he is actually the shooter. Now, we also had this here, as pointed out by Ken Klippenstein, the former FBI Assistant Director, Chris Swecker, who warned of the Bureau's very inconsistent description of the person of interest versus the photo that they released that we just looked at. He says, there's one thing that I think is very inconsistent and it bothers me, and that is the photo that you're looking at right now, this one, that's the photo of this guy blending in. The description that the FBI put out was a description of somebody who was in tactical gear, fully kitted out, which this guy obviously isn't. He says, now granted, he could have hid all of that stuff, but that hasn't been found, so I'm not sure that, there's an inconsistency there that could actually come back later at a trial to be what I would call exculpatory material. So part of the reason I bring this up is that trying to track exactly what's been going on over the last 24 hours has been an utter and complete nightmare. We have been getting conflicting information after conflicting information from a bunch of different government agencies that don't even seem to be on the same page with each other. And so this has been a complete and total clusterfuck in terms of trying to figure out what's actually going on here, what information they do have, what persons of interest they have, if they have suspects, etc., etc. So definitely the way that they have been handling this has been a complete joke as of this point. Now, we also had here, again, more information on the rifle that they recovered. Let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of the press conference here on that.
This morning, I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. So the FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis.
Okay, so again, you can see they're claiming that they found this weapon in sort of a wooded area near where I guess the suspected shooter would have fled. We have a map here from the New York Times in terms of what this would have looked like. So this is the area over here on the right, down this sort of like multiple layered, grass field area here, where Charlie Kirk was sat in his tent. They're saying that the shot came from, I guess, on top of this building somewhere. There were a couple videos that were floating around from, I think it was from this perspective inside this little hallway or this building over here, where people were saying that they saw somebody sort of running across the roof shortly after the shooting happened. Now, from the perspective that I was looking at that, it seemed like it would have been this roof and not this roof, but again, very hard to tell. And nothing is confirmed as of this point, but they're claiming that according to the university spokesperson, that this is the building that the shooter fired from. So a pretty significant distance there. I think, again, the estimate as of right now is still at about a 200-yard shot that this person was able to get off. And then behind this building, which you can't see here, but apparently there's a parking lot, which it's suspected that the shooter then fled through the parking lot and I guess into this wooded area or whatever, and that made their escape from there. But I mean, pretty incredible on a college campus with, some sort of degree of security at this Charlie Kirk event with so many people there, that somebody was able to get onto the roof with a rifle, to lay down, to line up, and to fire the shot, then to get down from the roof and to sort of, I guess, escape with the crowd, and to have made it this far without being caught. I mean, pretty insane, right? That was able to happen sort of right under everybody's noses. Now, we also have this claim that's been floating around here from the Wall Street Journal. They reported breaking ammunition engraved with transgender and anti-fascist ideology was found inside the rifle authorities believed was used in Kirk's shooting, according to their sources. They're saying that there was, again, transgender and anti-fascist ideology found inside the rifle. So I'm guessing they mean like either drawings or engravings inside either bullets or casings or whatever the case may be in this rifle. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported this, but then pretty soon after, it seems like we've gotten somewhat of a walkback on this claim. So then this was reported by the New York Times afterwards. They say, according to preliminary internal report circulated inside the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, federal and local officials recovered ammunition with the shooter's rifle that appeared to be engraved with statements expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. But a senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that report had not been verified by the ATF analysts and did not match other summaries of the evidence and might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. In fast-moving investigations, such status reports are not made public because they often contain a mixture of accurate and inaccurate information. So this claim here is not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination, right? Obviously being disputed by a high-level person inside of the ATF that this is the case. Now, I'm not saying one way or another whether this is true, whether it's not. It could end up to be somebody misread or misreported something that they saw in this report. It could also be true. Who knows what the case is? Even with that, I still would be extremely hesitant and would caution you guys about making any sort of definitive conclusions about the potential ideological makeup of the shooter, even assuming that this happened to be true, right? Because we would have to know more about their background. We would have to know more about their, social media history and what kind of people around them, know about their political ideology. It's entirely possible that this could be some radical leftist, whatever you want to call it, or it could be, a neo-Nazi who intentionally engraved this in their weaponry and then, ditched it in a place that they knew that it would be found in order to try to sort of frame the left for something like this. Again, I don't know either way. I'm not claiming to know either way, but it is interesting that the Wall Street Journal reported this and then the New York Times basically walked it back and said that this is not in fact confirmed at all. So again, caution you guys on any sort of firm conclusions on the potential ideological motive of the shooter, because we really don't know anything as of right now. Now, we also had this. There was supposed to be some sort of a press conference that was happening a couple of hours ago. Now they're saying that it's been postponed due to rapid developments. So, by the time that I actually get this video out on my channel, they may have come out with another press conference with further information. I'll post stuff down in the description and in the comments section if that happens to be the case. Obviously a very fast moving story, so they could have something major. They could be asking for help to find the guy and, putting the image that we saw earlier in the video out to the broader public. I don't know what this press conference is potentially going to be about, or whether or not it's even going to happen. But again, interesting in the sense that they're claiming that there are rapidly moving developments. Now we move on to Donald Trump's commentary on this entire situation. Obviously, he put out this big statement yesterday, obviously saying thoughts and prayers for Charlie and his family and, ordering the flags across the country to be lowered to half-mast. And now he comes out with this direct address to the nation, where he basically is floating sort of the idea that this is the left's fault and there needs to be some sort of a crackdown. So let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this.
This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country.
Okay, so a couple of different things there. Obviously, he's threatening at the end to go after left-wing organizations and people and whatever else the case may be, commentators maybe, who I guess in his words are supporting violent attacks. Now, what does he mean by that? Does he mean like left-wing organizations that are funding and supporting assassinations? Is that? No, of course that's not what he's talking about. He's just talking about using this as an opportunity to crack down on political dissent. That's what he's actually saying here, right? And before that, incredible stuff from Donald Trump, of all people, to say that heightened political rhetoric, right, and accusing your enemies, your political enemies, of being things like Nazis is the example that he used for Charlie, but using inflamed rhetoric against your political adversaries causes this kind of violence. This is coming from the same guy who calls people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, right, lukewarm, neoliberal, sort of like centrist, capitalist, pro-empire politicians, calling them radical Marxists, right? These are the same conservatives who talk about Zoran Mamdani as if he is a radical Islamist who's about to implement Sharia law in New York City if he's elected, right? This guy is the king of inflamed political rhetoric. But he says, no, this is only Democrats, it's only liberals, it's only the left that is engaging in this kind of political rhetoric and also political violence. Now, as a reminder here, as pointed out by Mehdi Hassan, he did a write-up of some recent violent actions taken by Trump supporters and conservatives just over the last couple of years to remind everybody of the broader context of political violence in the United States of America. So here are the actual facts for those with conveniently short memories. Number one, the man who targeted and killed Democratic state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home in Minnesota back in June was a Trump supporter. The man charged with the attempted assassination of Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro was a Trump supporter. The man convicted of orchestrating a series of shootings at the home of 4 Democratic elected officials in New Mexico in 2022 was a Trump supporter. The man who tried to kidnap the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband Paul in 2022 was a Trump supporter. The man who wanted to hang Mike Pence on Jan 6, Trump supporter. The man who killed the son of Obama-appointed District Judge Esther Salas in 2020 was a Trump supporter. Also, the conspiracy with Gretchen Whitmer, Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton, Trump supporter. And the man who killed the left-wing activist Heather Heyer, driving his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, Trump supporter. So just a few examples there to sort of, I guess, counter what Donald Trump is trying to claim in his video, as are many others, pretending as if it's the left that has created this heightened political rhetoric that we're experiencing now in this country. I mean, it really is just a complete joke from that angle. Now, continuing on, we have further calls for crackdowns on political dissent in this country. On Fox News, a guest said, we've had enough of the lies from the left, and they need to start regulating what's being said on these networks, calling directly for government regulation of speech on social media networks. We also had, similarly, hear from Republican Representative Clay Higgins. He said, I'm going to use congressional authority and every influence with big tech platforms to mandate immediate ban for life of every post or commenter that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If they ran their mouth with their smart-ass hatred celebrating the heinous murder of that beautiful young man who dedicated his whole life to delivering respectful conservative truth into the hearts of liberal enclave universities, armed only with a Bible and a microphone and a constitution, Jesus, and profiles must come down. He says, I'm going to lean forward into this fight, demanding that big tech have a zero-tolerance policy for violent political hate content, the user to be banned from all platforms forever. He says, I'm going after their business license and permitting. Their businesses will be blacklisted aggressively. They should be kicked from every school, and their driver's license should be revoked. I'm basically going to cancel with extreme prejudice these evil, sick animals who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination starting today. So this is coming from the same conservatives who, under the Biden administration, made censorship or alleged censorship of conservatives, especially on social media platforms, like their main cause, right? This is part of the reason, or the main reason, that Elon Musk bought Twitter in the first place, was we are going to be the free speech warriors. Enough with the political censorship on social media platforms. The government has no business telling us what we can or cannot say, regardless of whether it's hate speech or whatever it might be. And now these same conservatives are doing a complete 180 and saying not only should they be banned for life for, again, remind you, like, for quote unquote belittling the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Like, what does that even mean in this context? Belittling the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Like, it's one thing if you're calling for more assassinations, but what does belittling the assassination even mean in this context? But he says, if you do that, not only will you be banned for life from all social media platforms, but he's going to take away business licenses, permitting, blacklist their businesses, kicked from every school, and even take away their driver's license if you belittle or make a joke about or whatever the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So again, complete 180. This is not the only issue that we've seen Republicans and conservatives do a complete 180 on in the first, 9 months now of the Trump administration. We also saw this when it came to war, right? What happened to being the anti-war party? We're going to come in, we're going to end all of the wars, no new wars under the Donald Trump administration. And you go from that to within a few short months, now we're bombing Iran, we're going to bomb in the waters of Venezuela, we're potentially going to go to war with Mexican drug cartels, we're threatening to take over Panama, we're threatening to take over Greenland, etc., etc. The wars have not ended, and if anything, he's starting new wars. And now these conservatives, most of them at least, fall in line with that complete 180 on the anti-war stance of Donald Trump. We've seen it on, plenty of other issues as well. I mean, take the anti-DEI or the identity politics stance of conservatives. Now we're actually pro-identity politics, but only if it's for white people, for example, or only more specifically if it's for Zionist students, right? Because some Zionist students feel uncomfortable at the fact that there are anti-genocide protests on campus. And so we need to take over the university structures. We need to change the curriculum. We need to get professors fired and students expelled and have their degrees revoked and have police crack down on protests so that these Zionist feelings are not hurt. I mean, so many different issues we could bring up that have been just a complete 180 in the first 9 months of the Trump administration. And here you have Republican politicians and Republicans in the media who are calling for using this as an opportunity to do a full-blown crackdown, both in terms of censorship of political dissent, as well as, potential expansion of Donald Trump's sort of military police state that he's currently building right now. Now, we also have another thing here from Axios on that same front that the State Department is now warning immigrants not to mock Charlie Kirk's death. This is actually serious, guys. We have the State Department who's basically telling immigrants in this country, if you mock or downplay the death of Charlie Kirk, then we are going to round you up and throw you out of the country, or maybe throw you into a foreign torture dungeon like we've done with so many down to El Salvador. State Department telling migrants, don't mock Charlie Kirk. Now, we also have, on a slightly different front, some pretty aggressive calls for vengeance here from many different conservative accounts. This might be a little bit difficult to see because there's so many of them here in this picture, but I'll just read off a couple of them. Libs of TikTok says, "This is war." Posted this very shortly after the shooting itself actually happened. Before, again, all of these statements here are before we know who the shooter is. Like, we have no idea what the motive was. There was no sort of information at all when any of these posts were put up as to whether or not it was a far-right neo-Nazi, whether or not it was a pro-Israel person or a pro-Ukraine person or, a leftist or whatever the case may be. No information whatsoever on who the shooter was or what the motive was. And they're saying this is war. Right, you have Elon Musk over here saying that the left is the party of murder. Another one here from Sean Davis, the Democratic Party is a domestic terrorist organization. Christopher Rufo says last time that the radical left orchestrated a wave of violence and terror, J. Edgar Hoover shut it all down within a few years, calling for a J. Edgar Hoover 2.0. Gunther says they've declared war. Another one here from Joey, the Democratic Party must be classified as a domestic terror organization. I mean, I'm ready for civil war down here. Another one says, I don't want the National Guard sent to Democratic cities anymore. I want the Air Force sent. So another one here, final one from Elon Musk. If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die. So the rhetoric in the aftermath of this shooting is being cranked up to 1,000,000 right now, calling for civil war when we don't, again, even know the identity of the shooter. Now, we also have here from Jesse Waters, an example of him saying we're going to avenge Charlie's death. Let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of Jesse Waters and his reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination here.
Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy. Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. We got trans shooters. We got riots in LA. They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves. Now, Charlie would want us to put as much pressure on these people as possible. Dana nailed it. This is unacceptable and has to stop. And it has to stop now. And everybody's accountable. And we're watching what they're saying on television and who's saying what. The politicians, the media, and all these rats out there. This can never happen again. It ends now. Greg's right again. This is a turning point.
So, I mean, I don't even know what you would call this other than sort of trying intentionally to stoke the flames to get somebody to go and kill some Democrat or some liberals or some leftists in some sort of a revenge kind of an attack. I mean, again, he says everybody's accountable. We're watching the politicians, the media, all of these rats out here. This is before we know anything about the shooter. I mean, I keep saying that, but it's important to recognize that they're saying they keep coming after us. And he brings up all of these examples of recent acts of political violence, again, conveniently, leaving out all of the examples that we brought up here of right-wingers going after liberals and Democrats. But he leaves out all of that. He says, they are coming after us. Who's the they? We don't even know who the shooter is. So what do you mean they are at war with us? But this is the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing from many Republicans right now. Seems kind of, unlikely that there's not going to be some act of political violence in response to this, regardless of the identity or the motive of the shooter. We also had here from Steven Crowder and Megyn Kelly sitting down. Steven saying, I am not advocating for blood in the streets, and I'm not supporting it, but you know what? I'd get it. So you kind of are advocating for it when you say this to your audience, who you know how they'll interpret this kind of a statement, right? I'd get it if there was blood in the streets in revenge for Charlie Kirk being shot. Now, we already have some warning signs that potentially there could be some sort of a follow-up attack to this. We have here from Philip Lewis that 3 HBCUs, Alabama State University, Hampton University, and Virginia State University, have received campus threats. They say that ASU and VSU are on lockdown, and Hampton has canceled classes today and Friday in response to those threats. Now, obviously, this is something that I'll move on to the Israel angle of this here in a second, but just in terms of where this is potentially going to go from here, guys, I mean, this is a terrifying moment, right? Obviously, politically, I think Charlie Kirk was absolutely reprehensible in basically every way that you could possibly imagine. Now, you can say that at the same time as saying that his murder, his assassination is not a good thing. It's a horrific thing for the country as a whole, I think, because it tells you where we're at and where potentially we're going. Right. Obviously, we've had previous assassination attempts and, attacks against politicians. And that's happened throughout all of American history, although it does seem like it's escalating more and more over the last couple of years. But now we've entered the territory of, political operatives or political commentators who sort of work in a similar space to what I'm doing right now at a much more elevated and high profile way. And so we're talking about like taking this to an entirely different stage of where we're at as a country and the sort of violence that will become and is becoming more and more normalized in this country. And that's not a good thing, right? There is no way to spin this as if, left-wing people should be celebrating this or something like this. This is a terrifying thing. And I think it absolutely will result in this kind of thing happening more and more and more. And I can only anticipate, given the power imbalance in this country and the trajectory of where we're going, that will end up hitting the left probably disproportionately harder than anybody else. So again, it's a terrifying moment that we are in right now as a country. Again, incredibly violent country, the kind of violence that we accept as normal, both overseas and abroad. You can make a case that, some of what we're seeing right now is that violence that we've exported for decades overseas, making its way back home, sort of the imperial boomerang effect and sort of the increase in the fascistic police state that we're experiencing here. The violence that we are experiencing here is stuff that, again, we have exported throughout the entire world for decades and decades and decades. And so to some extent, it seems like it's inevitable that we're heading down this trajectory, but it's absolutely terrifying. And I do think that the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk takes us up a significant notch, to say the least. Now, again, moving on here to the final part of this, we have the Israel angle. Now, this is absolutely bizarre, guys. I don't really know what to make of this. We have had since the last day or so that Charlie has been shot and killed, I've seen almost every single high profile, Israel government account and, government official, from people like Netanyahu to Itamar Ben-Gvir, and I'll show you his statement here in a second. But they're all coming out and using this as an opportunity to push both a pro-Israel sentiment as well as to push Islamophobia, even though, again, we do not know the identity or the motive of the shooter. So I want to show you guys this short little interview that was done with wanted fugitive war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu himself, where they talk about Charlie Kirk. Let's go ahead and listen to this.
He was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate. He certainly didn't invite the violence, the horrible violence that tried to silence him. And, this is a worldwide problem. The people on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and their union with the ultra-progressives, they often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies, whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or, they try to kill me here too. But they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
So once again, he says they got Charlie Kirk after referencing, quote, radical Islamists and progressives, right? You do not know who the shooter is or the shooter's identity. And by the way, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump was not done by some left-wing progressive person or a quote-unquote Islamist. So he's just making shit up here on the fly, using this as an opportunity to push Islamophobia, to push a pro-Israel sentiment in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. Just making shit up. They are going after Charlie Kirk. They got Charlie Kirk. The radical Islamists and the progressives, what the fuck are you talking about? Not to mention how just utterly insane and grotesque it is to be lectured on free speech, right? And contesting ideas through peaceful means from a man who is currently conducting a live-streamed genocide, from a man who has assassinated, at this point, hundreds of journalists for daring to speak their mind, for daring to show the world the truth of what Israel is doing inside of Palestine. That kind of notion coming from this guy to say that radical Islamists are teaming up with progressives and they pretend to care about human rights, but they actually want to inflict violence. You're doing a genocide, and you're lecturing progressives on not being serious about human rights. I mean, this guy is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. And he's saying it's the radical left that are the violent folks. I mean, just incredible stuff there. Now, final thing, very similar statement here from Itamar Ben-Gvir. He said, the collusion between the global left and radical Islam is the greatest danger to humanity today. Charlie Kirk saw the danger and warned about it, but the bullets of the despicable murderer struck him. So again, tying these two things together when he has absolutely no idea, or at least I think he has no idea who the shooter is, he's tying the global left and radical Islam to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, I don't know. I'll let you guys read into this, but this shit is just absolutely, number one, bizarre, and number two, disgusting and despicable to see this from the Israeli government immediately jumping into action in such a grossly opportunistic way to say, oh, a guy who was pro-Israel just got assassinated. Let's blame the Muslims, right? Let's blame the radical Islamists and the left, even before we know anything about the shooter's identity or their motives. So I'll leave you guys off with that. Not surprising stuff here, but nonetheless, absolutely grotesque from the Israelis, the Israeli government officials, as usual. So again, I'll leave you guys off with that. That's what we know so far. It's about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here as I'm recording this video. If we get any further updates, I'll try to give you guys another, another clip to, once we figure out who the actual shooter is and potentially what the motive is. But there you go. There's your full update. We are heading for very dark times in this country, to say the least. To see the reaction from so many conservatives, from Donald Trump, the pledge to use this as an opportunity to crack down on political dissent, to expand the, potentially the surveillance state, to expand the police state, and to go after the left and, anybody who dares, I guess, to criticize Israel. It's a terrifying time. So I'll leave you guys off with that.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me. Everyone is saying